Welcome back to Texas Tiger Tavern, the show that demystifies the world of drinking to hopefully show you something new. This is your host, Jenny, and today we're talking about the Gin Fizz. Going along with this New Orleans Mardi Gras theme week episodes, oddly enough, well, not oddly, a lot of great things come out of Louisiana and New Orleans, obviously, but the Ramos Gin Fizz came from New Orleans. The Ramos, or Gin Fizz for short, either one, is a pretty slick citrus and gin cocktail with a plateau of foam. At least the one I'm making right now is not that big of a plateau, but we'll talk about that later. I think this is the most popular of the family of fizzes that I know of. We don't talk about many fizzes. I personally don't like that many cocktails that you have to top club soda with. But other than the Fuzzy Tauntaun at Disney, I think this is the other Gin Fizz that I really know of. Going along with the Mardi Gras and Louisiana Pride theme, this is one more cocktail originated in New Orleans. To start with the simplest information, the Ramos Gin Fizz is a cocktail invented in New Orleans that combines several ingredients to create a product of citrusy, sweet, and creamy flavors. Reading the description on a cocktail menu, it might sound odd and complex of a drink, because it is made up of gin, which one is really hard to get into for most. Heavy cream. I think the idea of milk in anything other than cereal and coffee is pretty crazy to a lot of people. But heavy cream is definitely getting on my good side. I keep it in my fridge at all times, if not for cocktails, for cooking. Also in there is club soda, which I mentioned earlier, to make it more spicy floral milk, and the casual egg whites, which I think we are growing to love. I enjoy it. It might be a setback for others, but there are replacements, especially for vegans. But the egg white is the most important part, because when shaking this cocktail, that plateau of foam at the top is really the most signature part of the Gin Fizz. It stiffens to create a frothy texture and a foamy head. People say this drink can compare to a pina colada minus the coconut, and I'm not a fan of coconut, so I've never had a pina colada other than the weird dentist gum stuff they have. But a pina colada minus the coconut, but adding in a more bright citrus sourness to it. But with that being said, let's start with a drink. They say that you've made a Gin Fizz right when you stick a straw right in the middle and it doesn't fall, it just stiffens. And so we're gonna try that now, and I can already tell you it did it. Hold on, let me test it one more time. I don't know, it kind of worked. It doesn't look pretty, but I think it worked. Okay, because I was shaking. Okay, a sip. Okay, we're not mad at her. We are not mad. Right now, I'm working in a Collins glass, which is a thin and tall glass. I stuck it in the freezer for a while to get the glass chilled to make this drink cold. The Ramos Gin Fizz is not served with any ice inside of it. It is shaken with ice and topped with club soda. So you want all those extra additives to get that cocktail as cold as possible. Like I said, there is a foam on top, so it goes kind of creamy texture at the bottom, a little between the foam and the cream at the bottom. It's very liquid, very normal, maybe lemonade-esque, and then on top is that foamy head. And right now it just looks like a nice cloud. I did the test with the straw that I mentioned earlier, and I think it worked. I have a metal straw, so it's heavier than others. Let me taste the foam by itself. Foam bad by itself. Ugh. I'd compare this to a creamy lemonade. If you ever had a frozen lemonade, I think I would compare it to that. And I'm sure, honestly, if you ship the heck out of it a little bit more, it'd be even more creamy all throughout. I'm going to give it a little stir just to see if it changes it a bit. Okay, shaking it up, it gets that foam that I didn't like so much at the bottom. it gives it a more texture, a little more creamier. And when I say creamy, I don't mean like melted ice cream creamy. I just mean thicker than you would think water. As I said before, in this cocktail, there's gin, egg whites, heavy cream, orange blossom water, or orange flower water, either one, which is actually kind of hard to find for me. I had to look 3 different places and then finally get an obvious recommendation at one of the supermarkets. Not a big supermarket, one of those smaller family-owned Calandros type of supermarket. Well, Calandros. I got it at Calandros. Club soda, which I use this Shasta club soda that you can find anywhere. Like I said, I don't really use club sodas or toppers, but I just keep a set of 6 in the back of my cabinets just in case for these special moments. And then lemon, lime, simple syrup. Right now, I don't have a garnish. If I were to garnish this, and for the picture, I would use probably an orange slice. I think because of this, it's a clear glass, but everything in there is a clear liquid. It's all white, so there's no color to it. So that orange, just that simple orange peel would be a nice pop. Or if not an orange peel, I would use an orange flower if you have it, or just any flower because there is gin in there, and gin, floral, herbal, any of those types of things. But I think orange would be the go-to. This drink is actually really, well, not really, but it is sweet. I think depending on the type of lemons you use, it'll also bring a sour taste into it. But it's not very fruity, even with the orange blossom water I put in there. It only said 3 dashes, but I think depending on the quality of your orange flower water, you can go more. But everything said that the orange flower water is very, it's like a banana in a smoothie. It just takes over the whole thing if you put too much. It's not sugary. We only put a half an ounce of simple syrup. So all that sweetness is coming from the lime and the lemon. But here's your New Orleans cocktail history for the week. The Ramos Gin Fizz was invented by a bar owner who actually was not a fan of drinking. His name was Mr. Henry, or Henry C. Ramos, or Ramos for short. Ramos worked in Baton Rouge at a Baton Rouge bar for several years. And I know every time someone says Baton Rouge bar, I'm sure this one does not mean Tigerland. But in this Baton Rouge bar, he worked there for several years before deciding to invest in his own property in New Orleans with his brother as a partner. The pair purchased the Imperial Cabinet in 1887, a bar located in what is now the Central Business District of New Orleans. Ramos was a gentleman of the highest quality. He closed his bar every night at 8 o'clock to discourage binge drinking and was only open for 2 hours on Sundays, and that was because there was a high demand from the people. His bar had strict standards, accepting only the well-behaved. Nobody could get drunk at this bar because Ramos wouldn't let them. Ramos's Gin Fizz was created by Ramos himself in 1888. Originally called the New Orleans Fizz, the drink became an immediate hit. The original recipe said that the cocktail must be shaken for 12 minutes before serving, which can be sped up using a spring or a blender ball during the dry shake process. And I'll stop there because obviously times have changed. First of all, no one has time or patience for 12 minutes for a drink. So there were a lot of variations that came after this, either using a milkshake shaker or putting it in a blender or XYZ, but just in hopes to speed up the process and still get that frothy foam head at the top. But I'd say I shook in the dry shake process. I probably shook for about a whole minute. I shook as long as I could. And I also put a spring, one of those blender circular springs that come in a blender. What are those blender bottles? You know, the protein shake thingies. I dropped that in there. You can also use the spring from your strainer. You can drop that in there too and shake as hard and as long as you can until you can't no more. because even after that dry shake process, you need to shake it with ice. So don't use all your energy up. Still, if anyone makes this drink in less than 3 minutes in total with the dry shake and the wet shake, it is not anywhere close to being authentic, and the presentation might not even be there because that stiffness will not be created. Back in the 1880s, because of the rigorous shaking and the popularity of the drink, Ramos had up to 20 bartenders working at one time. They were called shaker boys and often rotated in relay lines. During Mardi Gras, it is rumored they had up to 35 shaker boys at one time. Ramos was said to have served the last gin fizz at midnight on October 27th, 1919. Because he was a gentleman of the highest quality and he was also a big supporter of Prohibition and closed the doors of the Imperial Cabinet before Prohibition came into effect. Even after leaving the alcohol business, Ramos guarded the recipe up until his death, revealing to the New Orleans Tribune days before he died in 1928. In 1935, the Roosevelt Hotel, or the Sazerac Bar, bought the rights of the drink's name from his son. And still today, the Roosevelt Bar, they say they serve about 35 to 55 gin fizzes a day. And I know you guys are in New Orleans or your family takes a trip to New Orleans. I would say this is on the list to try, even going to the Carousel Bar or the Sazerac Bar. It is one of those things to check off on your list when going to New Orleans. So I definitely would try this drink. While I don't think many people will make this at home, I think having this out at the bar at least once would be really fantastic. And because this is a drink that, if you want it right, takes a while, don't order it while it's busy, because one, the presentation's not going to be good. Two, the drink's not going to taste probably nearly as good as it should. But I think this is definitely an intro drink into the fizz world, into the egg white world, into the heavy cream world. And I think all those things together, it's going to do you right. This is a nice intro drink. For the gin, I used Miles Gin, made from the Sazerac house themselves. Heavy creams Walmart, eggs Walmart. Other than that, there's nothing really special added into this. Going back to orange flower water, while I got discouraged of not finding the orange flower water, they didn't even have it at Total Wine, so I thought I could make it. But orange flower water is made by infusing the flowers that come from an orange tree. So that was out the window. Other than that, the gin, if you want to use one of those Hendrix or whatever that color changing gin is, it's only going to make the presentation better. Even doing my research, I saw people adding raspberry syrup to not only change the flavor of the drink to get it some type of fruit flavor into it, but also change the color. And it really made it a pretty pink red. And I think that would also go great with the upcoming Valentine's Day. That's an option if you really want to impress somebody on your shaking arm skills. Because of the shaking, but not because of the ingredients, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. You can do it. But honestly, if this is not someone's favorite drink or a special occasion, I don't think people would make this at their house. But you should try it. Definitely. Make anything you want. Drink anything you want, I think that would be the one. There's nothing much that I don't like about this drink. Obviously, presentation-wise, you got to do it a certain way to really get that foamy head. But I would add another flavor to this. Maybe even adding that strawberry liqueur I have, or a pineapple liqueur that I've made too, just to get some type of other flavor in there. I might try that. I really do think that's the only thing I would change. All right, guys, it's that time. Get your pen and paper out. The ingredients and recipe to making a Ramos Gin Fizz is 2 ounces of gin, ½ ounce of simple syrup, ½ ounce of lemon juice, ½ ounce of lime juice, 3 drops of orange blossom water, 1 ounce of heavy cream, 1 egg white. Dry shake that until your arms fall off. Dry shake with no ice. Add a spring if you have one. Then, once you can't shake no more, Add ice to the shaker tin and shake again. While some people shake until they can't hear the ice anymore, I shake until my hands are freezing off because of the condensation. Strain this into a Collins glass, a tall, thin glass with no ice, and it says top with 2 ounces of carbonated water. You really want to top until that foam touches the top of the rim, and that might be more than 2 ounces, clearly. Now, I know what you're thinking, Jenny, this sounds similar to a Tom Collins because I've listened to all of your episodes, and you might be right. You are right. Now, the biggest difference between a Gin Fizz and Tom Collins, other than the similar ingredients, Gin Fizzes are well shaken to make them have a foamy top, while a Tom Collins cocktail is stirred and have minimal bubbles. Gin Fizzes are chilled by shaking with ice and straight into a glass without ice. Tom Collins cocktails are stirred with ice and served over ice. Well, there you go. There's your knowledge for the week. As always, make sure to follow us on Instagram at TX Tavern Talk. That is Texas Tavern Talk if you haven't already, where you can leave a question or comment and see most of the drinks we have made thus far on the podcast with their recipes all in one place. No matter where you listen to this episode, make sure to follow us or click that bell to get notifications on when we post next. Go forth and enjoy Mardi Gras. Thanks for listening to Tavern Talk. We'll see you next time.